since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine.
We always like to go all out, as you can see, but even when we were growing up, it was a holiday that we could celebrate as a family.
Michael Jackson didn't just make music. He made heirs who turned pain into power. Prince, Paris, and Biggie Jackson are no longer the masked children of Neverland. They're adults carving identities that would astonish even the king of pop himself. From fame to fortune, heartbreak to healing, their stories reveal what happens when legacy meets reality. How did each child handle the shadow of global fame after their father's death? Who honors his legacy most, and who walked away? Across 7 chapters, we uncover how each transformed inheritance into identity. Beyond Neverland's gates. For Prince, Paris, and Biggie Jackson, childhood was both a dream and a fortress. Inside the sprawling fantasy of Neverland Ranch, they were shielded from the same spotlight that consumed their father. To the world, they were mysterious figures behind veils and masks. To Michael, they were his chance to rewrite the meaning of childhood, safe, joyful, and free. He wanted them to know laughter, not limelight. But in 2009, that dream was shattered. When Michael Jackson passed away unexpectedly, the magic of Neverland fell silent. The children who once played among carousels and zoo animals were suddenly thrust into a world of cameras, courtrooms, and headlines. They were no longer protected by the king of pop. They were the orphans of a legend. Catherine Jackson, their grandmother, stepped in. Her home in Calabasas became their new refuge, a far quieter, non-Neverland spectacle. The world waited to see what kind of adults they would become. Would they inherit their father's showmanship or escape it entirely? For years, the children lived in the shadow of that question. They appeared briefly at tributes, kept their schooling private, and tried to navigate the impossible balance between grief and expectation. Each of them, even as teenagers, began to show distinct paths forming under the weight of their surname. Prince, the eldest, carried himself like a young man determined to make his father proud through discipline and purpose. Paris, expressive and emotional, wore her heart on her sleeve, a spark of her father's intensity channeled into art and rebellion. And the youngest, Biggie, learned silence as his language. He had been born into curiosity and ridicule over his nickname, Blanket, a name that once symbolized his father's love, but became a target of mockery. Each sibling carried a different part of Michael's legacy: the charisma, the empathy, the mystery. But all of them shared one unspoken mission: to define themselves before the world did it for them. There has been a long period of quiet in the lives of Michael's children, perhaps to increase the volume of their personal growth from their point of view. They completed their schooling, followed their passions, and made friends who saw them as more than the children of a famous icon. They built up a certain resilience through tragedies. They also learned responsibility through their fathers, in that wealth could possibly have spoiled them, but it rather became a building block for freedom. Tabloids, in pursuit of Michael's fame once again, found it so much harder to ignore that his children were busy writing their own tales, less focused on the music charts and more on matters related to identity, education, and purpose. Neverland was truly a miracle, not because of the rides or fantasy itself, but because it gave these 3 the beginning they needed before being thrust into the outside world. Beyond its gates, they didn't just survive, but rather began to live. Prince would be the first to jump into adulthood with that leap of faith, signifying that being Michael Jackson's son meant much more than celebrated fame. It meant carrying forth the legacy of service, discipline, and love into a new century. The eldest would prove first that purpose can outshine fame if you know where you're going. Prince. purpose over spotlight. Prince Michael Jackson grew up with a name that carried both privilege and pressure. As the eldest son of the world's most famous entertainer, expectations surrounded him from birth. Yet rather than chase the stage, Prince did something few predicted. He stepped back. His ambition was not to sing or dance, but to understand. He wanted to learn the systems behind success, not merely inherit them. That journey began in classrooms, not arenas. After years of private education, he enrolled at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, majoring in business administration. When he graduated in 2019, it wasn't treated as tabloid news, but to those who knew his story, it was monumental. Prince wasn't chasing applause. He was mastering the tools to build a life on his own terms. This decision has revealed something immensely powerful in him. He knew that fame was transient, but knowledge was an everlasting commodity. Graduation was not merely a personal triumph. Rather, it was symbolic of breaking the chains that dependency often causes. Prince was preparing to run, not perform. But behind that quiet determination, he resided again in the echo of the heart of his father. In college, he co-founded a nonprofit inspired by Michael Jackson's legendary Heal the World Foundation, Heal Los Angeles. It started as a student project, but grew into a fully fledged organization in youth empowerment, advocacy, and community outreach. The turning point happened at the global crisis of 2020, when unemployment and hunger were at their highest. Instead of withdrawing, Prince and his team mobilized to give meals to families throughout Los Angeles. It defined his and their seal proof that Michael's message of compassion had not been lost in translation. Prince had repeatedly claimed during interviews that he would not want to live off his father's heritage, but through it. For him, Heal Los Angeles was not charity, but continuity. It was carrying on the values that Michael instilled in him: empathy, kindness, and responsibility. "I think he'd be proud," he said one time softly. "Not because of what I've done, but because I'm trying to live by what he taught us, to help where we can." That humility, however, distinguishes him from many heirs. For Prince, service is not an act, it is an inheritance. Personality away from philanthropy, marked with curiosity and creativity. His writing became more than a hobby to him. It was a metaphor for freedom with control. He would ride around California, sharing those moments on his YouTube channel with conversations with his younger brother Biggie and cousin Taj, giving his fans adorable glimpses into his down-to-earth self. Not a promotional tactic. Those were simply signs of a man walking his own way. You could easily tell. No entourage, no filters. Just Prince laughing, debating movies, and appreciating the simple pleasures of everyday life. By 2025, Prince will have achieved his next milestone. Love grown into commitment. After sharing 8 years of life with his girlfriend Molly, he proposed. Their relationship did not have the glitzy shine that Hollywood offers, but matured and stabilized. To surround his announcement of engagement also the same tone that has been defining his adulthood. Far from measured, heartfelt, and real. "We've traveled the world, graduated, and grown together. I'm excited for this next chapter," he wrote. No drama, no sponsored events, only reality. Even if Prince Jackson gets millions for inheritance, his true wealth is in having a purpose at most. He stands for what might be when legacy begets discipline rather than burden. The world may know Michael Jackson for his rhythm, but there is Prince for his reason and responsibility. Quietly, he builds, but he stands at each step closer to forming a structure for what then seemed a larger-than-lifetime legacy. While Prince built purpose from legacy, his sister took a bolder risk, turning her scars into sound. Paris, art, scars, and stage. Paris Jackson's story is the most turbulent, vulnerable, and inspiring chapter in the Jackson legacy. Born into the world's most watched family, she spent her childhood behind masks and security gates. When her father passed away in 2009, she was only 11, a little girl suddenly exposed to a tidal wave of public attention and private grief. Her tearful words at Michael's memorial, "Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine," broke the world's heart. But when the cameras stopped rolling, her pain only deepened. For years, Paris carried the unbearable weight of losing not just a parent, but the only person who had made her world feel safe. After her entrance into her teenage years, the sparkle of the Jackson name could not cover up her maturing darkness. Fame, loss, and scrutiny collided in a way that few could carry. Paris candidly admitted to fighting depression, self-hatred, and taking one's life thoughts. By 15, she had attempted to end her life more than once. Her strength, she said, came from those very honest struggles. Then and there, she was just trying to survive. "It was just self-hatred," she said in an interview, "low self-esteem, thinking I wasn't worthy of living anymore." The turn of events started in 2019 when she decided to enter a treatment facility. It wasn't an escape, it was a brave move. Paris was tired of living in denial about the pain. Now she was confronting it. Recovery began the remaking of relationships, starting with family. She reunited with her mom, whom she described as chill and supportive. Their relationship grew closer in a natural way, without any pressure or pretense. It became her mirror of love and admiration, her twin, whom she frequently called upon for support. Her sibling bond became her rock in an unsteady outside world. Biggie, less vocal, offered that same protection and love, a constant reminder that she was not alone in picking at the intricate threads of being Michael Jackson's daughter. Rather, this was by means of art, music in particular, that Paris began to quickly reclaim her identity. She did not chase after pop charts or comparisons to her family. Rather, she forged an avenue all her own, fueled by indie folk and alternative sounds. She released her first album, Wilted, in 2020, a haunting yet heart-wrenching collection of songs chronicling her journey in heartbreak, healing, and rebirth. "Everyone in my family does music. I am a Jackson. It makes sense. But a Jackson doing folk indie? That is my twist." Soft-spoken and confessional, she bore not just the image of a superstar's daughter, but rather someone with great emotional understanding and depth. Come 2023, she began to let her sound evolve, with the release of singles like Band-Aid and Just You mixes of vulnerability and edge. "It is louder, it is more fun," she said, but still written from that same acoustic, personal place. Her songs became a therapeutic personal insight into the chaos ebbing and flowing through her mind. But Paris has never stopped at music. She actively pursued avenues in fashion and film with a boldness that spoke of her metamorphosis. She modeled for KVD Beauty and went on to act in American Horror Story and Sex Appeal, proving she could embody strength and fragility. Each project felt less like an overhaul, more like an extension way to tell a story. Her fame often stirred curiosity about her affairs, but Paris had no desire to let public opinion skew her perspective. In 2024, she announced her engagement to music producer Justin Long, a bond that seemed creative. When things ended a couple of months later, she made no excuses for laying it all bare to the public. She went online to announce they had split, sharing about break-up tears, and then turned it into a lesson on being authentic. The act was completely out of character for her. The chronicles of Paris Jackson's life are not just a sad story. They are all tales of healing. Accepting the imperfection of survival, she has transformed the pain into art, healing that transcends her renowned surname. Her path shows us healing is not linear. Fame does not equal freedom. Vulnerability is a strength. she now takes the once heavy spotlight her father danced in and holds it like a mirror, reflecting truth instead of deception. While Paris faced her demons in full view, her younger brother chose silence as strength. Biggie, quiet fire. Of all Michael Jackson's children, Biggie, born Prince Michael Jackson II in 2002, has remained the most mysterious. To the world, he was once Blanket, a nickname his father gave him to symbolize being blanketed with love. But as he grew older, that name became a burden. It was misunderstood, mocked, and twisted into tabloid material. In 2015, at age 13, he made a quiet but powerful decision. He would no longer be Blanket. He legally changed his name to Bigi Jackson, a step that spoke volumes about who he was becoming. A young man determined to define himself on his own terms, away from the noise. While his siblings explored public lives through charity, art, and media, Biggie preferred the stillness of privacy. He rarely granted interviews, seldom posted on social media, and avoided red carpets altogether. Yet, those who know him describe him as introspective, intelligent, and deeply loyal to his family. Friends say he shares a bond with Prince that goes beyond brotherhood. They are, in many ways, two halves of the same foundation, Prince being the pragmatic leader, and Biggie, the quiet visionary. The two have spent countless hours discussing technology, science, and cinema. Their YouTube appearances together, though rare, reveal a natural chemistry rooted in mutual respect and shared humor. Biggie's personality is marked by quiet discipline. He doesn't seek attention, but when he speaks, people listen. In a 2021 Rare interview, he talked about what drives him, not fame, but function. He said, "That's what each of us siblings wants to do, make things that people enjoy, but that also benefit their lives." That statement revealed a depth that few expected from the once shy boy hidden behind veils. He sees creativity not as a spotlight, but as service, an idea that echoes his father's teachings, but in a new, modern language. Among the issues that have captured Biggie's attention, one stands out: climate change. He's passionate about environmental awareness, sustainability, and the future of the planet. Unlike most celebrity heirs who chase influence through luxury, Biggie sees value in purpose-driven leadership. "Our generation knows how important it is," he once said, "and we have work to do." His concern for the earth, technology, and science mirrors a generation shifting from fame to responsibility. Those closest to him say Biggie's intelligence is matched by his humility. He doesn't flaunt his inheritance or his father's legacy. Instead, he studies, learns, and plans. He's fascinated by film and visual storytelling, quietly studying production techniques with an eye for creative impact. If Prince represents structure and Paris embodies emotion, Biggie is the architect, building in silence, thinking long-term, and waiting for the right time to show his work. In family life, Biggie is known for being the calm anchor. During birthdays and gatherings, he's the quiet one in the corner who notices everything but says little. When Paris struggled through public heartbreak, he was there, not as a counselor, but as a presence. When Prince launched charity events, Biggie supported him from behind the scenes. His love is not loud, but it is consistent, steady, and unshakable. Today, at 23, Biggie lives privately in Los Angeles. He avoids the trappings of celebrity culture, focusing instead on education and small projects that interest him. His fortune ensures comfort, but he treats it like a resource, not a trophy. Those who've interacted with him describe him as thoughtful and kind, more interested in ideas than appearances. Bigi Jackson is a different kind of heir. His power lies not in visibility, but in restraint. In a world obsessed with showing everything, he values what can still be kept sacred. His story proves that influence doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than fame ever could. But behind all their independence lies a hidden engine, the money that powers it all. The money machine. When Michael Jackson passed away in 2009, he left behind more than a musical legacy. He left behind a financial empire. His estate, worth hundreds of millions, became both a blessing and a battlefield. At the heart of it were his three children, Prince, Paris, and Biggie, the heirs to one of the most profitable catalogs in music history. But what most people don't realize is that Michael's estate wasn't just about money. It was a blueprint for longevity. It was structured to ensure his children would never have to rely on fame, while still protecting the integrity of his name. After his death, the Michael Jackson estate was placed under the management of two executors, attorney John Branca and music executive John McClain. Their job was to turn chaos into control. They negotiated deals, restructured debts, and revived Michael's brand from near financial ruin to global profitability. Within a few years, the estate was thriving, generating hundreds of millions through posthumous releases, streaming royalties, and brand licensing. From the This Is It documentary to the Broadway musical MJ the Musical, Michael Jackson's image remained one of the most powerful in entertainment history. But for his children, this wealth came with rules. Each of them would receive portions of the estate through a trust, distributed in stages as they reached adulthood. It wasn't immediate fortune, it was managed stability. By the time Prince graduated from college, Paris launched her career, and Biggie turned 18. All three had access to financial freedom. Yet, none of them chose extravagance. Their spending habits tell a different story from the typical narrative of celebrity heirs. Prince invested in philanthropy and media production, Paris in her music and art, and Biggie in education and environmental projects. Their father's fortune gave them options, but it didn't define them. Still, the Jackson estate remains one of the most complex in the world. It manages intellectual property worth billions, from publishing rights to music royalties and merchandise. Every song played, every streaming download, every documentary earns money, not just for the estate, but for the family's future generations. It's not just income, it's an industry that never sleeps. But behind the scenes, there are lawyers, accountants, and strategists working tirelessly to protect the Jackson name. The children have often expressed gratitude for this system, understanding that it shields them from financial predators and preserves their father's legacy. Yet, being heirs to such power isn't without challenges. They've faced constant speculation about control, trust distribution, and public responsibility. Every estate decision sparks headlines. Should Michael's voice be used in ads? Should new projects continue? These questions hover like ghosts, reminding them that legacy is both inheritance and obligation. Prince once said that his father's greatest lesson was about stewardship. He told us to leave the world better than we found it. The estate's ongoing work reflects that principle, each child finding ways to use their resources for impact rather than indulgence. Paris funds mental health initiatives and sustainability causes. Prince continues to expand Heal Los Angeles, supporting underserved communities. Biggie explores environmental advocacy, channeling his energy toward education and awareness. Together, they've shown that wealth can be more than privilege. It can be purpose. Still, wealth has its shadows. It attracts lawsuits, opportunists, and endless public curiosity. The children learned early to separate financial reality from tabloid fiction. They understand that the true value of their inheritance lies not in the headlines, but in how they use it. They have wealth most people could only dream of, yet they live with the awareness that every dollar carries the weight of their father's legacy. For all its complexity, The Jackson fortune represents something more than luxury. It represents survival. It has funded healing, freedom, education, and creative independence. It allows them to choose how to live rather than how to survive. That, perhaps, is the truest gift Michael Jackson ever gave them. Not just money, but the means to define their own stories in a world that always wanted to write them for them. Yet, even money has limits. It can't buy the one thing that kept them grounded. Family, guardians, and gravity. When the king of pop died, the world asked one question: who would protect his children now? Behind the glittering headlines and endless speculation, it was Katherine Jackson, Michael's mother, who became the steady heartbeat of the family. She opened her Calabasas home to Prince, Paris, and Biggie, giving them what they needed most: stability. The world saw chaos, but inside that home, Katherine built structure. She became the bridge between the innocence of their Neverland childhood and the responsibility of adulthood. Her presence was firm but loving, her guidance shaped by decades of witnessing the highs and lows of fame. She didn't try to replace their father. She tried to remind them that they still belonged somewhere safe. The Jackson family, often portrayed as fractured, became an ecosystem of support during those critical years. Uncles and aunts, like Tito, Jermaine, and Janet, stepped in to fill emotional gaps. Cousins like Taj and Terrell acted as mentors and friends, offering advice on how to navigate the relentless attention that came with their last name. Each relative played a role in shaping the children's path, balancing public expectations with private realities. For all the gossip surrounding the Jackson dynasty, within those walls, family became less about fame and more about function. They ate dinner together, argued like normal siblings, and learned how to move through grief as a unit. Paris, in particular, found solace in her family ties. Her relationship with her grandmother grounded her, while her bond with her brothers gave her purpose. She has often called Prince her anchor, the sibling who brings reason when emotions rise. Biggie, though reserved, has been her quiet protector. Their trio isn't built on fame. It's built on endurance. They understand one another in ways the outside world never could. Having grown up in the same storm, they became each other's shelter. The Jackson family gatherings often go unnoticed by the media, but they're filled with moments of normalcy that reveal how tight their bond truly is. Prince grills food in the backyard, while Biggie cracks quiet jokes. Paris shares new songs with her cousins, while her grandmother listens nearby. These aren't the snapshots of celebrity. They're the echoes of a family determined to live with intention. They've had their disagreements, especially over estate decisions and public appearances, but they always circle back to unity. The gravity that keeps them together is simple. Michael Jackson's children don't see family as an obligation. They see it as a legacy. Over the years, the siblings have extended that sense of family outward. Prince's Heal Los Angeles collaborations often involve cousins like Taj. Reinforcing that service is a Jackson tradition. Paris, through her music and activism, has continued to honor her father's message of empathy. Biggie, though quiet, has maintained presence and loyalty at family events, choosing support over spotlight. Even their reconnections with Janet Jackson, most notably at Fashion Week in 2022, showed the maturity of a family learning to celebrate together again. Janet's caption, "So good catching up with my beautiful niece," wasn't just a social post. It was symbolic of healing. Katherine's quiet influence runs like an unseen thread throughout this story. Now that she's in her 90s, Katherine is still the wise matriarch, and life lessons follow her illustrious name. Each and every situation that the grandchildren find themselves in is tinted by her wisdom. She taught Prince patience, Paris compassion, and Biggie quiet strength. Under Catherine's roof, they learned that legacy does not only refer to the music of their father, but also to how they live today. The most precious inheritance for the Jacksons would be one another, notwithstanding the wealth, fame, and history that surround them. Family has steadied their course through the chaos. They are the gravitational pull that grounds them, even when the rest of the world expects a spectacle. Fame may have conjured the Jackson name, but family preserved it. And through it all, in every victory and every trial, one thing has always remained. Love became their secret rebellion against everything that fame sought to take away from them. With the family bond intact, 2025 brought each child to a crossroads where legacy met identity. After fame, 2025 crossroads. For more than 150 years, the Cliff House stood as a survivor, watching San Francisco rise, burn, rebuild, and reinvent itself. It had endured explosions, fires, earthquakes, and the relentless pull of time. But in the end, it was silence that brought it down. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic swept the world, the Cliff House, once alive with celebrations and laughter, fell quiet. Tables sat empty. The windows that had reflected countless sunsets now framed only waves crashing below. Indifferent and eternal. Longtime operators Dan and Mary Hontalas, who had cared for the restaurant for nearly half a century, fought to keep it alive. But with months of closure, lost revenue, and stalled lease negotiations, even their resilience had limits. On December 31st, 2020, the Cliff House officially closed its doors. For San Franciscans, the news hit hard. It wasn't just a business shutting down, it was the end of a living landmark. The Hontalases carefully packed away decades of history. Menus, photos, and postcards from the many lives the Cliff House had lived. The rustic 1863 inn, the grand 1896 gingerbread palace, and the elegant 1909 rebuild. Each one had risen from disaster before. Each one had seemed eternal. In the final days, locals came to the edge of cliffs to say goodbye. They took pictures, but strolled just to observe as the sun dived into the Pacific. The wind blew cold, something timeless under it, the sounds of the ocean echoing through memory. Today, the structure still stands, as the National Park Service preserved it as part of Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Its walls face the very same horizon, while its terraces still capture golden light in the evening. Visitors walk by, peer through the windows, and imagine the laughter that once filled the rooms. The tale of Cliff House didn't end in 2020. It only paused for a moment. Just like the ebb tide down below, it waits for the next wave, the next dreamer, the next rebirth. Because if the history of San Francisco has taught everyone anything, it is this: the Cliff House will always find a way to rise again. The three siblings have quietly taken control of their narrative, no longer reacting to the media, but defining their own rhythm. They have turned their father's legacy from myth into movement, Prince through leadership and service, Harris through truth and creation, and Biggie through reflection and purpose. Together, they've proven that fame can evolve into something more meaningful: influence without exploitation, wealth without waste, and legacy without limitation. The lives of Prince, Paris, and Bigi Jackson prove that legacy isn't a shadow. It's a light you learn to carry. Each has taken Michael Jackson's name and redefined what it means to be filthy rich, turning inheritance into purpose, art, and self-discovery. Which of their journeys inspired you most? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories behind fame and family. And when you're ready to keep exploring the untold truths of the world's most famous legacies, Watch the next video now, right here on your screen.